Freddie Mercury's secret daughter revealed. For over 30 years, the world thought they knew everything about the Queen frontman, his genius, his battles, his legacy. But what if one of the biggest secrets of his life has only just come to light? This isn't a rumor. It's a story backed by hidden letters, mysterious journals, and a woman who's remained silent until now. What really happened? And why did he keep it hidden for so long? Let's dive into the story that's rewriting everything we thought we knew.it. What if one of the most flamboyant, enigmatic, and beloved rock stars of all time had been hiding something massive, something deeply personal, for almost 5 decades? Freddie Mercury, the iconic frontman of Queen, left behind a legacy defined by vocal genius, theatrical performances, and an almost mythic presence. But according to a new claim, Mercury didn't just leave behind his music. He left behind a daughter. That's right, a child the world never knew existed. A secret so tightly guarded that even the most die-hard Queen fans are now questioning how much they really knew about the man behind the mic. The world has always been fascinated by Freddie Mercury's private life. He was known for his intense privacy, despite his larger-than-life persona on stage. He gave his heart to his band, his voice to the world, and a great deal of himself to those in his inner circle. But now, a newly released biography has made a claim that's left fans stunned. In 1976, Freddie Mercury allegedly fathered a daughter during an affair with the wife of a close friend. This revelation didn't come from a tabloid or anonymous source. It came from Leslie Ann Jones, a respected journalist and author who knew Mercury personally and has written about him for decades. Jones's latest book, Love, Freddie, delves deep into Mercury's relationships, his emotional world, and the secrets he took to his grave. And among the most explosive revelations, a woman, now 48 years old, claims to be his daughter, known publicly only as B. According to Jones, Mercury confided in a handful of people about B's existence, but made a deliberate choice to keep her identity and story under wraps. It wasn't shame or denial, it was protection. Why now? Why is this story just coming out in 2025? According to Jones and B herself, it wasn't about fame or fortune. It was about truth. B claimed she waited decades to come forward, choosing to live a quiet, private life until she could tell her story on her own terms. In fact, her motivation wasn't about claiming Mercury's legacy, but rather setting the record straight. And she's not empty-handed. She has years of personal correspondence, family connections, and even private diaries that Mercury allegedly gave her before his passing. This is more than a rumor. It's a full-blown challenge to the historical understanding of who Freddie Mercury was. Did one of the most private stars of the 20th century carry the biggest secret of them all? And if so, why did he keep it hidden for so long? The story is just beginning to unravel. And what comes next paints an even more fascinating, emotional, and unexpected portrait of a man who always had one more surprise up his sleeve. The music world has always been captivated by Freddie Mercury's mystique. His soaring voice, theatrical performances, and unapologetic persona made him a legend. But what no one expected was that decades after his death, a completely new chapter of his life would emerge, one he never revealed publicly. In a shocking twist, the latest biography about Mercury doesn't just revisit his career. It drops a bombshell that Freddie Mercury had a daughter, and not a metaphorical one, not a child of his music, but a real biological daughter. This revelation comes from respected journalist and author Leslie Ann Jones, who has spent years chronicling the Queen frontman's life. In her newly released book, Love, Freddie, she claims Mercury fathered a child in 1976 after a discreet affair with the wife of one of his closest friends. At the time, Mercury was already at the peak of his fame, balancing his growing role as a rock icon with an increasingly complicated personal life. The alleged affair happened while the woman's husband, an associate of Mercury, was out of the country on business. She became pregnant shortly afterward. The child, a daughter identified only as B, was born later that year. Rather than deny her existence, Mercury allegedly made a decision to shield her from the intense media scrutiny that surrounded his life. According to biography, only a small group of people knew about her. Mercury's parents, his sister Kishmira, longtime confidant Mary Austin, and a few trusted members of Queen's inner circle. Even among that tight-knit group, the topic was taboo. It wasn't something they discussed, not even in private. What makes this claim especially intriguing is that it's not rooted in vague hearsay. B, now 48, has allegedly stepped forward with her side of the story, providing detailed evidence including letters, photos, and even excerpts from personal diaries Mercury gave her before he died. In one of the most stunning details in the book, it's revealed that Mercury entrusted her with 17 volumes of his private journals, chronicling everything from his earliest memories to his final days. Jones herself admits that she initially doubted the story. It sounded too far-fetched, too out of character for someone as famously secretive as Mercury. But after meeting B and reviewing her evidence, Jones says she became convinced. The way B spoke about Mercury, the anecdotes she shared, many of which matched Jones's own memories, painted a picture that was hard to dismiss. If true, this revelation doesn't just change the personal history of a rock icon. It rewrites part of pop culture's most enduring mythology. Freddie Mercury, the man known for guarding his private life with ferocity, may have been living with the knowledge that he had a daughter, a part of himself he never shared with the world. And the question that now lingers is this: if Mercury truly had a child, what does that mean for the legacy he left behind? And how could such a monumental secret stay buried for so long? By the mid-1970s, Freddie Mercury was already rising to unstoppable fame. Queen had just released A Night at the Opera, and Bohemian Rhapsody was climbing charts around the world. Yet, behind the scenes of global stardom, a much more private, personal story was unfolding, one that would be hidden for nearly 5 decades. It started with a brief, unexpected affair, and it ended with the birth of a child Mercury never publicly acknowledged. According to Love, Freddie Mercury became close with a married woman in 1976. She was the wife of one of his close associates, a man who was often away for work and traveled extensively. During one of those long absences, Mercury and the woman grew closer. The nature of their connection has been described as emotionally intense but short-lived. It wasn't a public romance, nor did it follow the rock star pattern of fleeting backstage encounters. This was different, private, quiet, and ultimately consequential. When the woman discovered she was pregnant, the situation became intensely complicated. Leaving her husband wasn't an option, and making the affair public would have been explosive, not only for her marriage, but for Mercury's reputation and standing. While Mercury was open about his fluid sexuality to close friends, the public narrative surrounding him remained tightly managed. In 1976, a scandal like this could have done significant damage, not just personally, but professionally as well. Rather than distance himself, Mercury reportedly took responsibility in his own way. The woman chose to keep the baby, citing strong personal and religious convictions. Mercury agreed with the decision, though he insisted that the child's existence be kept a secret. The child, referred to as B in the biography, was born later that same year, and Mercury quietly supported her from a distance. To ensure secrecy, Mercury never formally acknowledged B as his daughter. He didn't include her in any public statements, nor did he reference her in his will. But that doesn't mean he ignored her existence. According to the biography, Mercury maintained a covert relationship with B and her mother, offering emotional and, in some cases, financial support. A confidential legal agreement, still undisclosed in detail, was reportedly arranged to provide for B without attracting public or media scrutiny. What's most striking is how successfully Mercury and his inner circle kept this information under wraps. Only a small number of trusted individuals were ever told: his parents, his sister Kashmira, and Mary Austin, his closest confidant, and even they reportedly never spoke of it again. Mercury, known for being protective of his privacy, seemed determined to shield B from the chaos of his public life. This wasn't just a rock star hiding a scandal. It was a man making a choice to protect someone he cared about, in the only way he knew how. The birth of B might have changed Mercury's life in ways few people ever imagined, but instead of disrupting his world, it became a closely guarded part of it, a chapter sealed away until now. If there's one thing Freddie Mercury was known for outside his music, it was his intense need for privacy. Despite the global spotlight constantly fixed on him, Mercury remained elusive when it came to his personal life. Friends described him as deeply private, almost secretive to the point of obsession. That mindset wasn't just about controlling his public image. It was about protecting the people he cared about. And nowhere was this more evident than in how he handled the existence of his alleged daughter, Bee. From the moment of her birth in 1976, Bee's identity was hidden from the world. Mercury didn't make any public announcements, never referred to her in interviews, and omitted any mention of her in official documents or his will. But this wasn't abandonment. It was a deliberate decision rooted in secrecy, trust, and fear of exploitation. Mercury knew the power of the media. He understood how headlines could twist truth, and he feared what might happen if he became a tabloid target. Only a tiny circle of trusted individuals was allowed into the secret. His parents, Bomi and Jill, were told discreetly. His sister Kashmira was also informed, though sources say she never spoke of it to anyone outside the family. Mary Austin, Mercury's former fiancée and lifelong confidant, is believed to have been one of the few people who regularly spoke with him about Bee. Mercury often referred to Mary as his common-law wife, and he once said that she was the only person he truly trusted. It's telling that she was one of the few who knew the truth. Even within the Queen camp, knowledge of Bee's existence was limited. Brian May, Roger Taylor, and John Deacon reportedly never spoke publicly or even privately about any child Mercury may have had. Whether they knew or were deliberately kept in the dark remains unclear, but it speaks volumes about how tightly Mercury controlled the flow of information. It wasn't just a matter of discretion. It was loyalty. Anyone who was told about Bee understood that the information was never to leave the room. This inner circle honored Mercury's wishes to the end. When he died in 1991, the secret remained intact. No leaks, no tabloid whispers, no posthumous revelations. Even Mary Austin, who inherited the bulk of Mercury's estate, never revealed Bee's identity or existence. She respected his desire for privacy, even when the world was speculating wildly about every other aspect of his life. That kind of loyalty is rare, and it shows how deeply Mercury valued trust. He built an emotional fortress around Bee, ensuring she could grow up without the chaos that had consumed so much of his own life. It wasn't just about secrecy, it was about protection. And yet, even the best-kept secrets can't stay buried forever. As Bee steps into the spotlight with her story, the question becomes, how much more did Mercury keep hidden from the world? And who else in his trusted circle helped guard those truths, waiting for the right moment, or perhaps hoping it would never come? For nearly 5 decades, the woman now believed to be Freddie Mercury's daughter lived in complete obscurity. Known publicly only as Bee, her story is as mysterious as it is compelling. Born in 1976 during the height of Queen's fame, Bee grew up without the world ever knowing who her biological father was. She didn't appear in tabloids, didn't chase a spotlight, and never attempted to cash in on the Mercury name. Her life, by all appearances, was completely ordinary, at least on the surface. According to sources close to the situation, Bee was raised primarily by her mother, who maintained the appearance of conventional marriage. It was a tightly controlled household, and Bee was reportedly not told about her true parentage until she was in her 20s. Up to that point, she believed the man married to her mother was her biological father. The revelation, when it came, was life-altering. Her mother finally opened up in the mid-1990s, years after Mercury's passing. She handed Bee a collection of letters, photographs, and notes, many of them signed by Mercury himself. Among them were handwritten entries from personal journals Mercury allegedly gave to her mother, intended for Bee to read when she was older. The documents painted a picture of a man who cared deeply about the daughter he could never openly acknowledge. He wrote about watching her from afar, struggling with the decision to remain anonymous, and his hopes that she would one day understand his reasons. Bee's response to all this wasn't what most people would expect. Instead of running to the press or filing lawsuits, she kept quiet. She didn't want to be famous, and she certainly didn't want to become a spectacle. She took her time, cross-referenced the letters with known handwriting samples, and even quietly reached out to individuals from Mercury's past, people who could help her piece together the truth. Some confirmed her story, others remained silent, but no one outright denied it. Over the years, Bee built a quiet, stable life for herself. She worked in education for a time, later transitioning into nonprofit work. She married, raised 2 children, and lived far from the glamour and chaos of London's celebrity scene. Despite her genetic connection to one of rock's greatest legends, she never used Mercury's name to get ahead. Her closest friends and even some extended family members reportedly never knew the truth until very recently. Her decision to step forward now wasn't driven by financial gain or fame, but by a desire for truth and perhaps closure. According to biography Love, Freddie B. reached out to author Leslie N. Jones not for exposure, but to tell her side of the story with dignity. After nearly 50 years of silence, she felt it was time to claim her truth, not as a fan, not as a scandal, but as Freddie Mercury's daughter, finally speaking for herself. When someone claims to be the long-lost child of a global icon, skepticism is expected. And in the case of B, the alleged daughter of Freddie Mercury, the world is understandably divided. Her story has stunned many, intrigued others, and raised questions that demand serious answers. But what makes this case different from other celebrity paternity claims is the sheer volume and nature of the evidence she's presented. According to Love, Freddie B. possesses a trove of documents that suggest a genuine connection to Mercury. Among them are handwritten letters, birthday cards, and notes signed Dad or Freddie, many containing personal details only someone close to him would know. These aren't vague scribbles. They reference specific dates, childhood memories, and even inside jokes that line up with other verified accounts from Mercury's friends and family. One of the most compelling pieces is a set of journals Mercury allegedly began writing when B was a child. In them, he expresses regret over his absence in her life, but insists that staying away was his way of protecting her. According to the book, these journals span nearly a decade and offer a rare glimpse into Mercury's emotional world, something he rarely revealed to anyone, let alone the public. Some entries even mention gifts he sent through intermediaries and reference photographs that have since surfaced. He also claims to have undergone DNA testing. While no public results have been released, sources close to her insist that a private comparison was done using DNA from Mercury's family, most likely through his sister, Kashmira. Although this remains unverified, it's a detail that has drawn significant attention. If true, it could provide the most definitive proof of all. Still, there are doubters. Some Queen fans have dismissed the entire story as a fabrication, citing the lack of legal documentation or public acknowledgement from Mercury himself. Critics argue that with Mercury's vast fortune in the state, any biological child would have likely been named in his will. Others question the timing of the revelation, wondering why he stayed silent for so long and why she's stepping forward now, just as the book is hitting shelves. Yet that argument overlooks a key point. Freddie Mercury was a master of secrecy. If anyone could have kept something this monumental under wraps, it was him. He left behind very few digital footprints, never fathered public children, and maintained a tight circle of loyalty that never betrayed him, even in death. The absence of public records doesn't disprove the story. It just means the truth was exceptionally well hidden. As the story continues to unfold, many are asking, what happens next? Will there be an official statement from the Mercury estate? Will the DNA evidence be made public? Or will this remain a compelling mystery, hovering between speculation and belief? What's undeniable is this. B's claim has shaken the narrative surrounding Freddie Mercury's life. Whether you believe it or not, the conversation has changed, and the final word may still be to come. Freddie Mercury's legacy is immense, larger than life, iconic, and seemingly complete. Yet the emergence of a possible secret daughter decades after his death has cast a new light on everything we thought we knew about him. If the story of B is true, then Mercury's legacy is not just about his music, his flamboyance, or his cultural impact. It's about what he chose to hide and what he protected more fiercely than anything else. For years, Mercury has been viewed through a specific lens: the fiercely private showman, the trailblazer who challenged norms, the tragic icon taken too soon. But this revelation of a child he kept secret and supported from the shadows adds complexity to that image. It humanizes him in a way that few public stories have. It shows us a man who made difficult choices, who lived with regret, and who tried, in his own way, to shield someone he loved from the chaos of fame. But it also raises difficult questions. Why didn't he ever speak publicly about her, even as he faced his own mortality in the final years of his life? Why was she not mentioned in his will, while others, like Mary Austin and his personal assistant Peter Freestone, were left substantial parts of his estate? Was it legal caution, a final act of protection, or something more painful, like fear of public judgment or disapproval from those closest to him? Even now, the Mercury estate has remained silent on B's claims. No public statements, no denials, no acknowledgments. Mary Austin, often the guardian of Freddie's personal life, has not spoken on the matter. The silence is deafening and telling. If the claims were false, surely the estate will move quickly to dismiss them. But they haven't, and that silence is now fueling even more speculation. Fans, too, are divided. Some feel betrayed, questioning why Mercury would keep something so monumental from the world. Others feel moved by the idea of a rock legend living with a secret love, one he felt too vulnerable to expose. And still others are skeptical, waiting for a hard DNA proof before they adjust their understanding of who Freddie really was. But perhaps the real legacy here isn't about paternity at all. It's about the man behind the myth, the Freddie who wrote letters by hand, who remembered birthdays, who watched from a distance because he thought it was the kindest thing to do, a man who, even amid global fame, tried to carve out one piece of his life that no one could touch. And now that the story is finally surfacing, we're left with a haunting thought. What else don't we know about Freddie Mercury? What other parts of his story are still buried in journals, sealed letters, or fading memories? One thing's for certain. The man we thought we knew may have been even more extraordinary and more complicated than anyone ever realized. Freddie Mercury's story has always been one of brilliance, mystery, and contradiction. He was a larger-than-life performer who electrified stadiums, yet a deeply guarded soul when the spotlight dimmed. His voice could move millions, but his silence about his private life spoke volumes. Now, with the emergence of B, his alleged daughter, his legacy takes on a new dimension, one that is more personal, more human, and undeniably more complicated. If B's account is true, it reframes much of what we thought we understood about Mercury. It means that behind the extravagant costumes, the operatic anthems, and the whirlwind fame, there was a man quietly carrying the weight of fatherhood, a responsibility he embraced in secrecy and perhaps in sorrow. It means that while the world was watching him perform as a fearless frontman, he was making choices no one knew about, guided by a fierce instinct to protect the life he helped create. The fact that this story has remained hidden for nearly 5 decades is, in itself, extraordinary. In an era of tell-all interviews and viral revelations, B chose to remain silent. She lived her life without Mercury's fame, without his fortune, and without his name. Her decision come forward now doesn't feel opportunistic. It feels deliberate, as if she, too, had carried this truth quietly for long enough. But it's also a reminder of how much we still don't know about the people we idolize. Freddie Mercury wasn't just a legend. He was a man with fears, regrets, and desires that didn't always fit neatly into the public narrative. The story of a hidden daughter doesn't tarnish his image. It enriches it. It shows that, like so many others, he had secrets he couldn't bear to share, not because he didn't care, but because he cared too much. As fans, we often cling to the version of our heroes that feels most inspiring. But sometimes it's the unexpected revelations, the shadows between the spotlights, that give us a fuller picture. Mercury's potential paternity doesn't diminish his musical genius. Instead, it adds another layer to his mythos. It shows us a different kind of bravery, the courage to love from afar, to keep a secret, and to trust that the truth would someday come to light. Whether or not the world ever receives definitive DNA proof, the conversation has already changed. The idea that Mercury may have had a daughter challenges us to see him not just as a rock god, but as a deeply complex human being. And maybe that's the most powerful part of all. Because in the end, Freddie Mercury's legacy isn't just etched in platinum records or sold out arenas. It's also hidden in letters, protected by loyalty, and now, perhaps reflected in the eyes of a woman who quietly carried a story until she was finally ready to share it. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more deep dives into the secrets behind your favorite icons. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. See you next time